Welcome to the MatriArch Podcast, a sisterhood of legendary Black queens in the making, speaking about real issues, questions, thoughts, ideas, lessons, and cultivating future experiences. So let's get our crowns, wine, slippers, and start the conversation. Hello and welcome to the MatriArch Podcast. I am your host, Ashley Washington, and with us today we have our handsome Black Millennial father here, aka my husband, and this is Brandon Washington, the President of MatriArch. So I just want to give a wonderful introduction for him. He is an amazing father. Obviously, I am biased, but one of the things that I love about is that he really is family focused. He really does make it a point to not only have myself in mind, but also our beautiful girls. Just want to make sure that I let you all know that. And also, Brandon has a lot that is required of him being at an executive level, and he always finds a way to manage, balance, and make us all feel like we are super, super special. Without further ado, here is Brandon Washington.
All right, thank you so much. Honored to have an opportunity to join on the podcast. Thanks everyone out there. Let's have an opportunity to talk to this. One of my favorite discussions, talking about family, talking about how we're going to raise the next generation of beautiful Black queens. So looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So for those of you just tuning in, this is a podcast on Black millennial fathers. So traditionally speaking, in the past, Black fathers or fatherhood in general was just, hey, husband, bring home the bacon, and you're just kind of hands off with the children. Raising of children was actually left to the mother. With that came, we're talking now in millennia about how fathers can be more hands-on, changing diapers, raising children, and what that actually looks like. So tell us a little bit about how you have seen the transition from generation to generation with your father, his father's father, so on and so forth, even from your mother's father.
Well, I think first of all, I always consider myself tremendously honored and blessed to have been brought up in a wonderful two-parent household. Very focused on religion, very focused on God, very focused on family. So the values that I derived from in terms of how to be a husband, how to be a father, really come from that. I had a wonderful opportunity to have a great father in my life, one that was very masculine, but certainly still, took out the time to spend time with my younger brother Cameron and I. And I think the evolution is really starting to come just as the evolution is in society with masculinity as a whole. You have this traditional masculinity, which you alluded to some of those things, bringing home the bacon, making sure that people are protected. But I think what we need now, more so than ever, is for fathers to be a lot more hands-on. Certainly as it relates to having daughters. I think Black women in society have more struggles than other demographics. I think they'll have tougher challenges in other demographics. And I think you have to be able to lift him up and prop him up at home. So if that's a father in the household, that's an uncle, that's an older brother, whomever that may be. Our young women, we have daughters that are 6 and 4, and I try to pour love into them every day. And that's the one thing I would certainly want to make sure that all young ladies who are growing up, especially in the Black community, are getting that love with them each and every day.
Yes, and I really, really appreciate you saying that we need to prop them up, because as Black women, when you're going out and you're facing, societal pressures or trying to fit in, or we've even seen this with our daughters, them being pressured to fit in even at the age of 5 and 6, or otherwise from maybe their teachers. But it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because I think what comes full circle is you honing in and giving them the safe space. That safe space allows them to basically say, okay, well, I can be myself. I can have curly hair. I can have this boastful personality that lights up the room, particularly our youngest. And then our oldest also brights up the room, but just in a different way. And nurturing that, I think, is key. So thank you for bringing that up. But another thing that I want to bring up is how we start to redefine what it is to be a father, particularly of girls, where we have a lot of whether it be single moms or what have you, just being out there. I was raised around a lot of single moms, even though I was from a single parent home. I had friends that had single parent homes, whether it be a male or female, and that weighs on you differently as well. Just talk to us a little bit about how you see the future of fatherhood, given the numbers of, Black single women raising children.
Yeah. I think it's not necessarily even a redefine. I think it's a properly defining what fatherhood is. And, we talk about this all the time. There's a lot of statistics out there as it relates to fatherlessness, generally speaking, and certainly then as it relates to the Black community. What people often don't talk about is that for fathers that are in the home, for fathers that are in their children's life, Black fathers are actually by far the most active. And that's certainly I've seen not only the data on that, but certainly I've seen that anecdotally in my life in terms of taking kids to practice, making sure kids feel like they are appreciated. One thing I do with my daughters, I tell them every day. I tell them they're beautiful every day. They need to hear those things every day if you're raising a young Black daughter in society. I think what the challenge is, um, we think about fatherhood. We're a nuclear family. We both came from nuclear family households. That's not true in a lot of cases in society. So I think what you have to do is whether it's you're an uncle, whether it's an older brother, whether it's someone in the community, church, a pastor, whomever that may be. I think you've got to find a way to have that fatherly figure in a child's life on a day in, day out basis. Single mothers are absolute superstars. They
Yes,
work
ma'am.
40, 50 hours a week, and then they come and essentially work around the clock, whether it's one child, two children, three children. And I think that can weigh on them. I don't care how, strong a person is. We all have our limits. There's only things that we can do, and only so much we can do in a 24-hour span. So for me, it's about making sure that we are locking arms as a community. Our lives are much more transient than they used to be. So I think that's one contributing factor. The fact that most people now grow up and move to different cities, whereas in our generation, whether it's cousins and fathers, uncles, you had a lot of people that you had a support system from that were in a general 5, 10 mile radius. If mom couldn't pick somebody up from practice or mom was running late because she's doing something at work, my uncle could step in, the brother could step in, the grandfather could step in. And that's a challenge these days. That very much a challenge. And that's why platform like MatriArch is so good to connect, different people from across different geographies to see what is it can we do to help each other? Because I think, obviously the old adage is it takes a village. Historically, that's true, and that village has broken down a lot over the last, let's call it 10, 20, 30 years. Some of it from some of the systemic issues that we have, some of it just from personal choices. And some of it just because, again, we're much more transit than we used to be as a society. So I think that's something that's a contributing factor as well.
Okay. Well, you bring up a lot of points. I'm gonna try not to go too far on a tangent with this, but the breakdown and the moving specifically for better opportunity or what have you have come a long way in this country. We know that. We know our history. And it's so, so important that even though we don't have the village of everybody living on the same street, you can call your auntie, uncle, or whomever to just come and watch the kids or go to a movie or what have you. Hence us moving closer to family. Overall, trying to reestablish a village is matriarch's job. That is our number one job. However, it is inherently based around, who has time to get online. Single mothers, what are they lacking? Time. And so that has been a continuous challenge for us. But what we try to do is bring it all full circle. But what I want to do for the month of June, which is why we have this podcast series going on, is that we cannot do this by ourselves. Just as they say, historically, behind every strong Black man is a strong Black woman. And that works both ways. And so I think it's important to bring light to, even though you may have matriarchs that are in the family, what still holds it together is the family. There is no one person. And I feel like this society has given us this facade or this paint by numbers kit, if you will, of hey, if you grow up and you go to school and you go to college and you get married and you have a family, this is what this looks like. And if you're filling out those paint by numbers instead of living your life as you really should, and or have done traditionally, whether it be a nuclear family, it's just really important that you make sure that that landscape is paint by numbers on your own terms. Because what I think a lot of millennials are waking up and they're like, wait a minute. I went to school. I did all the things that were told. I looked for a man after I got my career started or what have you. And we're waking up and we're like, okay, this is not here. And where the men lie within that, obviously we make our own decisions, but it's so important to highlight that the men in our village are assets. And I don't know if men necessarily see themselves as that. And I think that that whole nucleus family, losing the matriarch, which is why I named this matriarch to not only honor the matriarchs that were in my family, but also, hey, millennials, we have to pick this on up and start running with it. I know we already have a lot on our plate, but we are the bridge from generation to generation that have had that experience. And calling on Black men to help us bridge that gap is all the more important. So thank you for giving us, feedback on that because it is something that I think we're struggling with not only within our village but as a society and making sure. I heard you mention, the masculine portion of what it is to lean into fatherhood. Could you explain actually why that's important?
Well, I want to go back to one thing you mentioned in terms of there not being a historic matriarch anymore. When I think about growing up, I think about my grandmothers, who we affectionately called Nene and Grandma
Mhm.
Mary. I think about your grandmother Jill and your grandma Rita. Those figures are a lesson in society, and I think so much of that is that lack of geographical connectivity. I think you touched on it a little bit, but I think one of the things that has to happen is that there has to be these gap fillers, and it's everyone. It's men and women within the community to make sure they're interconnected. Touch on the masculinity point. Masculinity is something that's kind of under attack in society right now. Masculinity is a good.
Yes.
Yes, there is toxic masculinity out there. That's very true. There's misogyny. All those things absolutely do exist. But having a masculine presence is good for a child, regardless of their gender. Like that's something. Just as having a feminine presence is something that's good for a child, regardless of their gender. So that's why it's good to make sure, again, even if you are a single mom, that you, or a single dad for that matter, because there's about
Mhm.
20, 30% of the single folks in the Black community are single dads now. So that's something that's even a transition from the last maybe 10, 20 years that you're able to find that counterbalance in somewhere. Again, that may be your sister. It may be someone that you develop some close relationship at work. It may be, where people are faced. We think it's a really good idea to get involved in a very good church community that you can join groups, share ideas. I think one thing that is tangentially related to this and probably anything that goes on within the Black community is that there's challenges with this and challenges from a mental health perspective, challenges from this. You kind of alluded to the paint by numbers thing, this illusion that, okay, I can do it all by myself, I can handle it all by myself. And that if I'm not able to do everything perfectly, that I've somehow failed. And that's just not the reality for you, myself, for anyone, any of our friend group, anyone that's in my family. That's not the reality. No one person does anything by themselves. If you ever hear people talk about that, that's just not true. So you have to decide, like, hey, what can I do to help, and where are the gaps for me? And it may be the physical thing that, hey, can I have someone help me out with my child? It may just be the mental thing that, hey, let me make sure I call on, Sister X, Sister Y, this brother A, brother B. Let me make sure I just check on them because sometimes someone just needs a little bit of a push to get through the week. They need a
Mhm.
little bit of like, hey, you're doing well. Let me know if you need something. Can I Venmo you some money for a dinner? There's just little things that you can do, again, even if you're not be able to be physically present in a space. I think there's things you can still do to help. But I did, that was a really good question about the masculinity because I do want to just say that very loudly. Masculinity is a very good thing. Just as femininity is a very good thing. And those things work, we believe divinely in a way that should. help us grow as a society. I do think fatherlessness in all communities, but certainly in the Black community, is something that continues to ail us, not to the extent that the media puts out there. Because although I'm biased, I believe Black fathers are the best fathers on the planet.
Yes.
I'm just
Amen.
biased. The reality show we're the most involved parents, the most involved fathers, but I obviously have a bias there. But I do think that um, not having, even not necessarily a biological father, but that fatherly figure, I do think that's something that ails children. I do think that's something that, whether it's a lack of feeling of protection, whether it's, hey, I just want to know someone loves me. I think it's really important for Black girls growing up to know that they're beautiful, know their dark skin is beautiful. You talked about their curly hair that is beautiful, because what they're going to see in society is that if you're not this thing, which is usually blonde, fair skin, skinny, that you're not beautiful. So I think it's very important if that's something we communicate to our young daughters day in, day out. And I do it with my 4 and 6 year olds, but that's something we also have to do with our 14, 16, 17, 18 year olds as well. So I really enjoy talking about this because it's something so I'm very passionate about. And I think something that we as a community can do a better job of, and that's just lifting each other up. So again, it's not necessarily that we can all be physically present for people because everyone has busy lives, but there's things that you can do. Again, maybe it's a care package, maybe it's the phone tree that we talk about all the time, making sure that you put someone on an app that they were previously unaware of. It's connecting them with another job opportunity. One thing that we can do better as a society is making sure that when we get in positions of power, positions of authority, that we're doing our best to lift other folks up, because that is what the white communities do, is what Asian communities, what Indian communities, every other community does that. We can do a better job of that as well.
Yes, us not going into the typical crabs in a barrel, and just knowing the black dollar only exists for 6 hours is just at our own detriment, to be honest. And I know that gets more into finance, which we'll table for later, but it's so important that we uplift each other, whether it be spiritually, financially, whether it be, hey, I just wanted to send you a quick text just to check on you. Those things matter and they make a world of a difference. I cannot tell you through our matriarchs, whether it be our call tree, when I call and check on someone, they're like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. And that just warms my heart so much because it lets me know that we're doing our job. Sorry, I'm getting emotional about it, but
Like what you're hearing from the MatriArch Podcast? Guess what? There's more. So make sure you check it out on matriarchmom.com. We have a place for you to join our sisterhood and to be a part of something great.
it's just so important. But one of the things that I want to talk about is not only being a Black millennial father, but how we are allowing our children to interact with social media. So, everyone's heard about TikTok and, it being a Chinese company and it having influence over our children, just social media as a blanket entirely. How it's starting to change how soft skills matter or lack thereof, and things of that nature. Could you just give us a little bit of insight on your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, our daughters are young right now. They're 6 and 4, but we've had a lot of conversations, and they won't be involved in social media for a number of years. And even when they do, it'll be something we monitor very closely. It certainly has had impact. One thing that it does, it causes us to compare ourselves to something that's not really real. Because I don't know how many times folks have been in a restaurant, or been in a club, or been in a ball game, and you see people take a picture 9 times to post something that is supposed to be spontaneous, and it's filtered, and it's all those things. So what you do is you compare yourself to those other parents who are doing it perfectly, or that other single mom who has the best life. She's doing everything perfectly. Can promise you she's not. That's not how life is. None of us have that together. That's just the reality of things. I think the thing that you always have to think about is like, what is best for me in my situation. And one of the things I think we can do as a community, whether it's parents or individuals, is that we can be a little bit more self-reflective about where some of our gaps are. I think we can do a better job of saying, "Hey, I need some help." Like,
Yes.
that's not a problem to say, like, I need help with it. It may be financially, it may be physically, it may be something with children, it may be something I've kind of lost my way spiritually. Like I need help. That's something our community can do a much better job of. I think, we, as most people do, like with our parenting style, we try to root it in, we're Christians, we're followers of Jesus Christ. We try to root it from a biblical perspective. And if that works for you and your household, you should certainly do that. If not, you do have to find whatever your moral code is and try to making sure that your children and you yourself are walking that moral code. Because one thing about parenthood is historically said, and it's so true, and we find this every day, is like more is caught than taught.
Yes.
Our daughters say things to us all the time, and it's something that they have heard me say or something they heard Ashley say. We had no idea that they, heard us say those things, or they understood the context of a conversation we've had. Making sure that you're walking the walk in front of your children. So, you want them, especially, those of you who have, older children that are in teenagers, college, like if you don't want them to be out all times of the night, if they see you out all times of the night, they're gonna, model those behaviors. You don't want them to, engage in excessive drinking and use drink excessively in front of them. Like those things just impact all of us. We're all, we all take our leads from the authority figures that are in our lives, whether they're parents, grandparents, teachers, whatever they may be. So I think those are the things that we do. We can be a little bit more self-reflective. We can certainly say, hey, I need help, and reach out to whomever that is we need help from. And I think you got to run your kind of run your own race. Like that's the thing with social media, not only from the children's perspective, certainly from a macro perspective, from even what we deal with. Like you can easily get caught up in comparing yourselves to or what you used to be in high school or what that other person did, or you and I started at the same company and now you're the vice president and I'm still in middle management. Like you can really get caught up in those things. That's why you got to make sure like you limit that stuff. We do a lot of scrolling and laughing and stuff on social media, but I think you got to make sure that it's just a part. You use it for there's a lot of positive benefits. Obviously, you can spread words about positive things very quickly. You can reach out to people in ways you historically haven't been able to reach out to them. So use it for those reasons, but don't make it the center of your life. Don't make it some idol that you kind of hold up.
Yes, I completely agree with that. And in addition to not making it an idol, just make sure you have a time limit, whether that be the kids or yourself. A lot of times we will, just put on an Alexa timer or something like that, and just pretty much go from there. But I think it's really, really important that you just limit your social media, just whether it be again, you or your child. Another thing that you touched on in this conversation is being able to do it all in link or in conjunction with social media. And I think being raised in the 80s, 90s, and coming into adulthood in the early or 2000s, it is so important that we reiterate that you cannot do it all. I feel like that was a narrative that was sold to us because we first saw women really starting to take executive and suite level seats, whether it be the Dolly Parton, 9 to 5, classic, or, it just be, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do me. And I think that what happens is you oftentimes just get lost. You're so busy trying to do it all, quote unquote, instead of actually, whether it be living your life, asking for help, or, and on the inside, you're just dying. And this is something I had to work on, particularly, when Ryan was diagnosed with cancer. I thought I could do it all. And even when she was diagnosed, I had gone to work. And I know we've talked about this and me having that, hey, I can have a daughter with cancer and work. I should have had this moment and like, Ashley, WTF, what are you doing? Right. And it was because I had that in my mind. I saw my mom working and having all of these jobs and taking care of RJ. I mean, like my brother, there were so many things that I just saw and she just woke up and did. And that's all I saw. So I think it's important say that all to say, not only is it important to state that you cannot have it all, and there's a give and take, which is natural balance to life, but there's also just a give and take to how it is we want to live our lives and what we actually can do, which is recognize your limitations, accept what the things are before you, and don't be worried about everybody else. So that's a whole other thing. But thank you so much for bringing that up because I feel like so many people struggle with that, and they are looking at that facade to just kind of be a base and or barometer for how they move in life.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I do realize, I was able to call these things out. I do realize that we are tremendous. We know a
Yes.
lot of folks that are blessed in our situations. 'Cause I know a lot of women may watch this and say, well, look, I got no choice. I
Yeah.
gotta do it. Right?
Amen.
So,
And we
I
know them
understand
too.
that.
Yes.
I think one thing that, as you balance like career, the family, your personal, always take some time, whether it's quarterly, semi-annually, annually, to say, am I doing what I want to do? Because so many
Hmm.
people get caught up in that rat race. So many people get caught up on the hamster on the steering wheel, and they're doing it because they just think they're supposed to be doing it.
Right.
Like, are you doing the thing that you feel like, if you believe in God, are you doing the thing that you feel like God has just brought you to do? Is that what you feel
Hmm.
like you're doing? Or do you feel like you're doing something to maintain a lifestyle that you don't really want, or to compare yourselves to other people, which we all do in some way, shape, or form? People say they don't do that, they're lying. It's not true. You got to make sure that you're mature enough to recognize when you're doing that so you can eliminate that from the way you interact. But I think a lot of it is like, make sure that you are, as you're serving your child, as you're doing anything you can to serve the community, make sure that you're doing what you want to the extent possible. We all know, like, hey, I'm no different. You can't just jump off a job and like, we all have bad days of work in our career and those things. But make sure that you're not, putting the gas to the floor every day just because you think it's something you're supposed to be doing. Even now, like at 40 now, I look back on life and think about, hey, things I could have done better. And think about, hey, what am I going to do differently for the next 20, 30 years? One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to, be on your deathbed at 85, 90 years old, feeling like you just worked forever, not doing anything, not ever pursuing things that you want to pursue. So take some time and have that introspection within yourself to say, hey, am I really following whatever I truly believe my plan is for my life? To be clear, I'm not telling anybody to jump off your job or do anything like that. But if it's not where you want to be, think about what's the plan to get to where I want to be.
Mhm.
If you're a single parent out there, what is the, I know I have a child, I know I have a couple of children. What is the plan and how do I bring my children along with that as well? So, and there's no such thing as a perfect parent. We try to work through that, and that's kind of what you're alluding to. Like, you can do it all. Like, the reality is, like, if you're doing really good in one area, you may be slacking in another. You're doing really good financially, you may be slacking a little bit in the fun area. If you are, really having a lot of fun, maybe you're not as physically. There's always some give and take. So just make sure that you're indexing in the spaces in which you want to make sure that you want to spend your time and feel like you're kind of getting the most bang for your buck there.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think that can resonate with a lot of people, parents, singles, whatever. So thank you for bringing that up. Also, as a Black millennial father, I think it's important for, us to kind of, I'll be quite honest, just pick up with civil rights and where that is. I do feel that civil rights, particularly for Black people, has kind of fallen by the wayside. And we do need to pick that up. Millennials are at an age where we need to start running for office. I'm starting to see more people of color running for office. Not to be divisive, it's on left and right, and in the middle, to be quite honest, with independence. But getting active and being an active Black millennial father while also being at home and being that example. What do you have anything that you can talk about?
I think this is true. Whether it's you want to be a better parent, want to be better physically, want to be better spiritually, mentally, whatever it is, you got to start small. Most people, if you leave, if you think about, I need to lose 50 pounds, you're not going to do that tomorrow. It starts with, drinking a lot more water than soda. If you think like, hey, one day I want to run for office, you're not gonna launch a campaign tomorrow. You probably need to start going to, monthly meetings or quarterly meetings, getting more and more information about things. I think start small. When you do small things over a period of time, they start to build trends. You start to build expectations you have within yourself, and you start to see that you have a little bit more intellectual capability that you're probably giving yourself credit for. So I think the biggest thing in those spaces, if you want to get more involved in the community or want to do better in any other aspect of parenting, life, marriage, whatever, I think it's really start small. And when you get a win, give yourself a pat on the back for that win. Whether it's losing a couple pounds, whether it's, well, I understand the judicial process. I previously didn't understand the judicial process. Give yourself a little bit of grace in terms of you're not going to conquer everything in one day. It's great to have ambitions, but I think any type of goals you have, whether it's getting involved politically, family, whatever they are, anytime those you have those large goals, make sure you break them down into whether they're daily, weekly, monthly increments, things that you can kind of tangibly see. Because we all get momentum from seeing the progress. If we're trying to save $10,000, we all feel great when we see that first thousand and see that second thousand, give us more motivation to do more and more. So that's my biggest thing. Start small and give yourself some grace as you kind of go through those, whatever those goals are going to be for you.
I like that. And I think, and let me add this little caveat. Brandon is a planner. I thought I was a planner when I first met him, but he really showed me like what planning was. Basically, from a timetable perspective, Brandon's time management is absolutely through the roof. So, with that, I definitely want to say I'm glad that you said start small in those bite-sized pieces because so often people just see, these people got here or what have you, and you're seeing the end of the parade rather than the beginning, which it started out clunky and things of that nature. And had a little bit of struggle in the middle. Somebody got tired or needed some water. But it's interesting when you really zoom out and you see the full parade and the full scope of everything. All of that happen in increments. And day by day, forming habits, I think, is so, so important. And trying to elevate Black men, and yes, I'm talking to us Black women. It is so important for us to elevate Black men so that they can shine in their fatherhood and understanding that they may need um, time to be with their daughters or time to take a break. Times we'll do grocery store runs or Target runs, and we'll say, okay, well, you just stay here, do whatever you need to do, whatever, or go out for a drive or what have you. Those little moments matter and they help rejuvenate. You do that, I do that for you, you do that for me. And they just give you almost like this second wind to be able to take on, whether it be bath time or dishes or what have you. So those things matter and those things are so important. But Black women, I really want to say just help each other. We are here to help each other. We are not here to do it by ourselves, make babies by ourselves, and do all that. We are really here as a unit. That's why it takes two people to even make a baby. You need those two people. And so that's really, really important. And like Brandon was saying, whether it's reaching out to an uncle or a stepfather or whomever, even great uncles are great. They're really, really great. They just get to experience children in a different way. And it's just amazing to see. But yeah, so thank you for that. Also, I want to ask overall with Black fatherhood in America, and I say America specifically because we face different challenges. Overall, being a Black father in America, how do you see us really taking hold of the wheel and supporting Black fathers? I had just given just a small example before, but what do you see that Black fathers need right now?
I think one thing you alluded to is support. I think you may not be married to the father of your child. You may not be a good personal relationship, but know that that's something that children are going to want to know about and talk through that. So I think support, even if it's not a good personal situation, is something I think is very important. I think recognition and to be very clear. I realize, and let me say this very loudly, Black women are by far the most least recognized group of people from a family, from my opinion, from a family perspective, certainly in the corporate work environment, from a civil rights perspective. So I think acknowledgement. Sometimes people are going through things and they just want somebody to acknowledge, like, hey, you're really doing all you can. Sometimes, so I think that's for Black fathers, but that's certainly something for Black mothers as well, to just recognize and have someone say, like, I see you and I appreciate all the things you do. And that's why we talk about MatriArch. That's why it's good to connect with, a platform like MatriArch that's going to allow you to connect with other people that may be going through similar struggles. Because sometimes it's just a good word. We've all been in a bad or a dark place and needed someone to push us up a little bit. That's just kind of the ebb and flow of life. That's true whether you're married, that's true whether you're single, that's true whether you're about to get married, whatever your situation is. So I think it's that. So I think recognition, I think that support, because I think there is a push among folks that are in my generation, that I would say kind of the 35 to 40 realm, that there's a push that um, a Black man is not involved with his children. That's not something that's seen very well with other Black men. That's something that's not a good look when we're having the conversations at the barbershops and we're having the conversations at sports bars, etc. So I want to be very clear. Like, there's an expectation and a camaraderie and an accountability that Black men have to hold themselves to, and we police amongst ourselves. And I think what we can do, in addition to having that support, is making sure that we're doing everything we can do to support the Black mothers out here who are taking the brunt from a whether it's career perspective, the family perspective. Many Black women that are in our generation are also kind of simultaneously, I'm a single mom. I'm also helping mom or grandma out. So, like, just thinking through those things and making sure that we're doing everything that we can do to support, our women. If we're with them or not with them, whatever that situation is, you can still be supportive of someone even if you're not in some type of romantic relationship with them. So I think those are a few things that, from a Black male perspective, I think we need, and also need us as Black males to make sure we're policing ourselves and holding ourselves more and more accountable to the way we treat our Black women as well.
Wow, very well said. I have nothing to add. But yeah, I think that's so important. Thank you for bringing light to that and letting us know how we can support Black males and that recognition of Black women just not being seen. It's a real thing. I've lived it, and we have seen it, unfortunately, and experienced it. So, yeah, so thank you so much to all you fathers out there, you wonderful, wonderful fathers out there. We thank you, we uplift you, we support you, and thank you for supporting MatriArch. And Brandon, thank you so much for joining our podcast.
Thank you for having me. Certainly hope you all enjoyed this conversation. We look forward to having a lot more like this. Thank you.
All right. Guys, take care. Bye.
MatriArch would like to thank you for listening to our podcast. Please visit matriarchmom.com to continue the conversation and join the sisterhood of other legendary Black queens in the making.